For anybody watching this who is a Miami Dolphin fan that either wasn't alive like me or may not have been old enough to remember Super Bowl 7 and 8, was Sunday afternoon in Nashville. Just the story of our existence as a fan of this franchise. Don't need to go over detail by detail, but it's well known by now. The team suffered a 34-3 loss to Tennessee. Their 7-game winning streak gone. Their playoff chances gone. The team was officially eliminated from playoff contention, even though they came into the afternoon with the 7th seed and in control of their playoff destiny. However, we all knew coming in they were facing an uphill climb. They absolutely had no room for error. They needed to win their next 2 games. And their 2 opponents were tough teams. Tennessee not only is a damn good team, but they're a team that is still fighting for the number 1 overall seed and home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs. That was a tough fight right off the bat. Had they got past that, they have the Patriots. Beating a Bill Belichick coach team twice in a row in the same season. The Finns were up against it. And before anybody, and I've already seen it happen on Facebook groups, on Twitter, doing the petulant, see, we told you every time we have a good player and let him go. Talking about Ryan Tannehill. You're the same fucking people, and I'm talking about media members and fans alike, that could not get rid of Ryan Tannehill fast enough. You wanted him gone after year 1, and for 6 seasons we heard the same bullshit. He sucks. He has a noodle arm. He's trash. How would we do with a real quarterback? Now all of a sudden, he's the greatest thing since Marino. Sit your ass the fuck down. Sit down, okay? You don't get to run this back. For the record, Tannehill threw for 123 yards. Okay, it wasn't Ryan Tannehill who beat the Dolphins on Sunday. He did just enough to get the team by. Yes, he threw for 2 touchdowns. One was for 9 yards and one was for 15. The fact that the Titans ran for almost 200 yards that game was what got them by. The fact that their defense completely put the clamps on Miami's offense was what got them by. There's a lot of reasons Miami lost on Sunday. Bottom line, they got out-muscled and thrown around by a better team. Point blank, bottom line. From top to bottom, the Titans were a better team. I'm not going to make a bunch of excuses. They kicked our ass. Period. But here's the facts. Okay? The Dolphins had a 7-game win streak that, frankly, I can call this season a quasi-success. I mean, I'm not going to give it an A grade by any circumstance, because when we came into this season, we had playoff aspirations. Every single fan of this team expected this to be a playoff team. They fell short of that goal, big time. Yet, following the debacle in London and that 7-game losing streak, had we even whispered the term playoffs, we would have probably been told to get our heads examined. So I'll give this season a C grade. Maybe a C minus. Because they certainly fell short of expectations. They're going to have a record worse than what they had last year. But they get props for turning it around, because it could have completely gone off the rails. They did rally. They did turn things around. They did get themselves in contention for a playoff spot. But there are still a lot of questions that need to be answered. This team still has a lot of holes that need to be fixed. There were a lot of things that were unearthed as the season went on. Why didn't this team make the playoffs? Why was this team put in a position to where they had to win their last 2 games? Look at that 7-game losing streak. There were some good teams they lost to on there. Indianapolis is a damn good team. They're probably going to make the playoffs. The Patriots in the playoffs. The Raiders fighting for a playoff spot. May make it. The Bills, they're in. Majority of those teams weren't bad losses. It all circles back to London. That Jacksonville loss was a fucking embarrassment. And the Atlanta one wasn't much better. You got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You cannot lose to Jacksonville. You can't. They beat Jacksonville. Forget Atlanta. You beat Jacksonville, you lose to Tennessee, it's forgivable. You beat both of those teams, we're talking about playoff positioning at this point. But circling back, what does this team need to fix in the offseason? Obviously, the number one thing that everybody's talking about, Barry Jackson started the brigade, and once again, the regurgitated horseshit about the quarterback position continues to be thrown out there, and the cycle of Deshaun Watson will not stop. I'm convinced that we're going to continue to hear Deshaun Watson's name cycled out there until he actually gets traded to Miami. But let me make this abundantly clear, ladies and gentlemen. Throwing multiple trade assets, multiple possible players, and a ton of cap space at Deshaun Watson is not going to fix the problems that this team has. Not all of them. Will Deshaun Watson be an immediate upgrade from Tua? Possibly. But Tua has shown me at multiple points this season, he is capable of being a pretty damn good NFL quarterback. And I still think there's room for more. Tua did lead the NFL in completion percentage. Tua did show tremendous maturity. He did show growth. And who knows what he's capable of if you give the man time. And if you give the man some actual fucking protection on his offensive line. Yes, I know that's every NFL quarterback. I get it. But what he did with less, I think he's capable of more. Give this man an offensive line. Don't make him have to work behind an offensive line that is patchwork. Look, I don't know what Austin Jackson's future in the NFL is. It was clearly established this year that it's not going to be at left tackle. Whether it's at guard or not, yet to be determined. Spend the entire offseason working with him at left guard and wait and see. Robert Hunt seems to be okay at right guard. What this means for Solomon Kinley's future, whether he's a rotational piece or not, I don't know. Jesse Davis can hit the fucking road. I've seen enough. His tenure here is done. Tackle, Eichenberg showed glimpses. Obviously you're not going to punt on him just yet. I still think he's an NFL player. But they have to get a left tackle. And I'm not talking about in the draft. I think Orlando Brown, some say he's better at right tackle, but he is more than adequate at left tackle. I don't care if it's Armstead. Something has to be done at left tackle. They have to address that position now. They cannot waste any more time. They also have to get a center. And I'm not saying they have to break the bank. Ted Karras did very good in his lone season in Miami. He's not going to be an all-pro. He's never going to be a superstar. He's not a player that you're also going to have to spend a ton of cap space on. I say if you give Ted Karras a 3-year deal, you're not going to have to spend a ton of money on him. He is a very, very, very solid center. You have to get a left tackle. You have to get a center. The receiving core. Jalen absolutely looked the part. Absolutely looked the part. He's only going to get better from here. He's a reliable target with speed. He showed a lot of capability out there. His ceiling is sky high. Mikey G at the tight end position. He's a free agent. I don't know whether they need to franchise him or sign him long term, but something needs to happen. Keep him. He's only getting better. There's 2 targets. I hate to say this because I had high hopes for him, and in 2019 he looked like he was turning the corner, but I think it's time to move on from Devontae Parker. He's been here since Joe Philbin was head coach. We've seen all we're going to see from him. When he's in there, he's shown potential and he's shown glimpses, but he's not durable and he's not consistent. It's time to move on. Will Fuller was a $10 million waste of fucking money. Time to move on from that. There are receivers out there. And I'm not saying you go out there and spend a bunch of money on Adams. I'd be perfectly okay with a DJ Chark. I know Allen Robinson probably won't be cheap. But you certainly kick the tires on him. There are receivers to be had. Certainly would be okay with getting one. Or even picking another one in the second round of the draft. Defensively, they look pretty stout, although I'm not going to say I'm not a shade concerned that Tennessee ran all over him yesterday without Derrick Henry. I shudder to think what would have happened with Henry in the lineup. They would have probably ran for 300 yards with Henry in there. But, maybe a little bit of tinkering with the run defense. But by and large, they're pretty solid there. But this team has some holes that they need to fill. And, yeah, going out and getting Deshaun Watson would be absolutely nice because, if he can clear all this crap up, he is a Pro Bowl caliber player right now. And I think he is a better runner than Tua, so he would make that running game better. Oh, by the way, there's another position that absolutely 100% needs to be filled. They cannot continue to throw darts at the wall and see what sticks. They can't continue to dig on the waiver wire and continue to pick up players that other teams casted aside. They have to get some kind of solution to that position for the long term. And I'm not saying spend a first-round pick, okay? And people will piss and moan that they didn't pick Najee Harris, that they picked Jalen Phillips over Najee Harris. That was the right move. My big pissed off moment is the fact that they picked Noah over Jonathan Taylor. That pisses me off more than anything. But there are some halfbacks to be had in this year's draft. Take a look at one of them. Quit picking scraps off the heap. Fix that halfback position. But going back to Watson. Yes, getting him would make the running game a little better because he is more of a scrambler than Tua. He's more of a mobile quarterback that can run. But they still need a halfback. He's not going to throw to himself. I mean, Jalen and Mikey G, but they need somebody else or probably another two receivers because, Mac Hollins is good, but he's more of probably a 4. He's certainly not going to block for himself, and he's already taken an ass beating in Houston. I mean, he's going to take up a lot of... He's going to cost at least a first-round pick. Probably 2, maybe 3. Miami can't afford that kind of draft capital, folks. They have too many holes that need to be filled. This Tennessee game and points of this season, this franchise was exposed. They're going to finish probably, they're going to finish 500. Maybe. Is that what you want? Can Deshaun Watson lead them to maybe slightly above 500? Yeah. Will he win a few more games? Yeah. But how much draft capital do you want to throw down the drain? When Tua, I think, with a little bit better surrounding cast, could do a little bit more. Something to ponder. Anyway, that wraps it up. I may do something after the New England game. Who knows? But that's my thoughts. Like I said, it's disappointing to see the team just get completely folded in Nashville like that. Had they gone out there and it had been competitive and they'd have lost by a field goal, I might have been more cheery. As is, I mean, like I said, I can't be too pissed off. That's why I'm not on here ranting and raving like I did after the Jacksonville loss because, as stated, had you told me at the beginning of November that this team would be in playoff contention in January, yeah, I'd have laughed at you. So, like I said, so far I'm going to call it a C, maybe C- season. It's not a failure, but it's certainly not a raving success. I expected more, but it is what it is. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon.